Make it T.
Frequency Radio.
What's that?
Station identification.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Saturday edition of the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm thrilled you're here. I hope you guys are having a great weekend out there. It's been a pretty great day for me, just real busy and a lot of anticipation and preparation for tonight's show. But as always on Saturday nights, my good friend and co-host Don Longbeard is here with me.
Good evening, everyone.
So, how'd your day go, Don? Good?
My day was good. It was long, but, that's what happens when you got to, earn your living and, everything. But excited to be here. This is going to be a good one.
This is the show, ladies and gentlemen, that I've been waiting my whole career to do. And this is one of those rare opportunities where you get to interview your hero, one of your heroes. I mean, we all have our heroes growing up or whatever you're interested in. And there's some people that really mold how you see things in whatever it is you're interested in. And they help you to understand, and they help you to see, and they help you to formulate opinions on what might otherwise be a nebulous subject. And it is my great honor and pleasure to introduce to you all the bear, Mr. Jim King, who is joining us tonight here on the Paranormal Portal. Welcome to the show, Bear.
I don't remember who in the hell you was talking about.
I'm talking about you, sir. Little did you know it, but I got a bear poster in my room.
So, it's an honor to be here. As far as I can recollect, this is the first time I've ever participated in a iHeart Radio program, and I feel it's an honor to be here with you guys, and I love talking about what I'm doing. Actually, you caught me with my britches down.
Uh-oh.
I'm in currently an undisclosed location on site. I'm sitting in my truck at this moment. That may be why it sounds like it's a hollow log, but what it is, we are on site for what we call a booger outing. In the South, we know Bigfoot, Sasquatch as what we call a booger. A lot of people want to insult that and say, well, that's something you do when you pick at your nose. I said, hell, I don't pick at my damn nose, so, that must be your problem. But we've got 25 people here in, as I said, north central Mississippi, undisclosed location. Very good spot. I've been checking out and looking over for many years, over 45, probably even right at 50 years coming to this location. And they have its fair share of boogers at this location. We've got people here from Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Alabama, of course, Mississippi. We throw these things together occasionally. And when I committed to this show, we did not have this outing planned. But actually, I'm on location. About 12 of the members of our entourage have gone out to hit and do calls to try to get a Bigfoot to respond so we can record them, whereas 6 of us are at the camp, and we have recording devices all around our camp. So I'm sitting in my truck above the camp, overlooking this beautiful lake. It's a full moon tonight.
Wow.
You can see the shadows underneath the trees, crisp 40 degrees, cool enough for a fire, but also cool enough to make a Bigfoot frisky this time of the year in the South. And we've already have experienced owl calls, coyotes raising 10 times worth of hell, and one owl that is very suspicious to us. So I'm sitting here with my windows up, hoping that I don't interfere too much with our sound drop boxes that we have located all around the perimeter of the camp. They are very sensitive, but yeah, if they get my big mouth on them, we just going to have to erase that tape and start over the next time. But I'm hoping that during the course of this conversation that I've done a few calls from the camp itself, and I'm hoping one would come in. And if we get lucky and one starts raising hell and banging on my roof and trying to flip my truck over and all that, I'll put you on speakerphone so y'all can, yeah.
We'll call 911 for you.
No, they wouldn't find me. They wouldn't know where I'm at. I'm hoping the other 6 will. They know I'm up here on the hill. I'm away from everybody else, and so I'm the sacrificial lamb. And
Nice.
yeah, but he'll be done spit it out and get a upset stomach and the whole 9 yards. So I don't think he's in any danger. So we'll see what happens.
Now, let me ask you: is this something you've ever done before? Have you ever been on location and done an interview like this?
We have actually. Okay. I was a member of a broadcast show for several years. Since 1997. We've archived. If people wanted to look it up, all they would have to do would go to blogtalkradio.com and type in Bigfoot Outlaw Radio. I'm no longer associated with this show, but all of our programs have been archived over the years. And not only that, we are also archived on YouTube.com. All you have to do in the search engine is type in Bigfoot Outlaws Radio, 3 words, separate, not together, and you'll hear this beautiful southern slang that I have, because I can butcher the English language, but that's just how we do it in the South,
Yeah.
One of my favorite sayings is, "What the hell was that?" And it's just a redneck trying, hoping that his English teachers from way back in the dinosaur age don't recognize me for trying to teach me how to talk back in the day. It just didn't take very well.
Well, I can understand you, so you must have got the gist of it anyway.
Works for me.
No, that's really cool. Now,
But we actually have done, really, we got to looking back through our records, and we were the first, quote, unquote, Bigfoot group, because we never really basically called ourselves a group. We were just a bunch of people of like interest who found each other over the internet, who get together periodically to go out and harass these wood creatures. Because that's actually what we're doing. We're trying to solicit a response or a reaction that, if you just sit there waiting for it to naturally happen, is not going to happen. So we go to these locations, and we've actually broadcast the first live in the field outing. I believe we did this back in 1997. It was on a radio show hosted by Shane McMahon. He's deceased now. And it was called Campfire Shadows. And that's on Blog Talk Radio also. And Shane had driven to the same location in Mississippi where we're currently at. And he was from Wisconsin. And when he got down here, we was able to bring one in close enough that he could have actually grabbed Shane's
Mm.
britches leg. I call them britches, but everybody else calls them pants. It's just blue jeans, so what in the hell? Anyway, that radio show is archived under Campfire Shadows.
Oh.
And if they looked hard enough in Blog Talk Radio, they could actually find that broadcast and hear the fear in Shane's voice when he realized what was basically crawling at his feet. This thing had snuck totally upon us. And one of my fellow outlaws and one of my best friends and mentors is named Dan Rickey. They were filming this with night vision at the time, so we thought Shane was pulling our leg. Here he is down here, all excited, because he had never personally seen one at that point in time. Mm-hmm. So we thought he maybe was pulling one over on us, because we was doing it live on air.
Sure.
But with Dan at the time, who lived in Oklahoma, was going back home, him and his wife, fellow outlaw Vicky was watching, Vicky was driving, and Dan was watching the footage back on the way home from Oklahoma, which it's, about a 12-hour drive, so what else did he have to do? And he was watching the footage, and that's when he started seeing this thing, and the dark was at Shane's feet. And it just blew our mind that this occurred, and you can hear the genuine fear in his voice, the whole 9 yards, when he discovered what had crawled up into a little bitty drainage ditch that was in front of him in the middle of the woods. And if it wanted to, it could have reached out there and tied his shoelaces. But,
wow.
If anybody's ever interested, and it's out there if the people want to look it up. But no, I'm actually very much looking forward to this. You guys are something else for inviting this whole country boy on the show, and I hope that we can help somebody out. That's what I try to do. I try to help everybody that I can. Mm-hmm. I don't do it for money. I've never made a dime off of doing what I do. I do it for the adventure.
Nice.
Right.
A lot of people in the community, and I keep saying community, what I mean is Bigfoot, Sasquatch, booger, monster, cryptid type enthusiast. I'm an adventurer. And I was born with these things on my grandfather's property. Mm-hmm. My grandfather knew about them. So I've basically known about them from the very first time I seen one peeking in my bedroom window in 1966. My grandfather was smart enough to realize that at that age, he didn't need to try to explain what we encountered. But when it was from 70, 71, somewhere in there, I was 10 or 11 years old, and I don't keep up with the year at that age because, I'm just trying to survive schools and things at that time,
Sure.
and not marking my calendar to figure out what date it was. But we had one that wanted to try to participate with me and my brother and sister while we was chasing what we call in the South lightning bugs, but
Sure.
a lot of people across the country know them as fireflies.
Right.
And we was catching them and putting them in mason jars and all, and we had a very enthusiastic younger Bigfoot type wanted to join in on the fun, and that turned into a very terrorizing experience because we never knew what the intent was. And at that point in time was when my grandfather realized, especially that me and my brother, who was a lot older than my sister, he had to explain to us that things like this did exist. And because he had himself encountered them over the years. And he also was smart enough to tell us, keep your damn mouth shut about them or you'll be ridiculed and made fun of.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you notice, I'm talking to you guys, so I didn't pay that no attention.
Good man, we appreciate that.
Well, at times I wish I never said a damn word, but when I turn around and help somebody with some things that I've been able to actually experience in the really big greatest creation, which is this world. And it is definitely a flesh and blood creature. One other thing I want to say real quick, and it's no insult on you guys. I know the show's name is Paranormal, but at times, I kind of not like a pet peeve, but it really bothers me that I know we're talking about something that is as real as a white-tailed deer or a average black bear or grizzly or coyote. It's something of nature of the wild that chooses from something that happened in its past existence that it has decided never to trust mankind. And, you know, thinking about it from that direction, at times I don't trust mankind, so I want to just shuck all my damn clothes and go out there and join them.
Yeah, I understand.
And I agree with you. I think it's not, as we were discussing just prior to the show, it's not paranormal. It's just uncatalogued. And so it kind of falls under that wide umbrella of the unknown. And so that's why people refer to it as a paranormal thing. But I agree with you. It's an animal that's chosen our absence. It's decided it doesn't want to be around us, and it's very good at doing that.
Plus, it don't help when it's got a big brother helping the fact alone that it's not supposed to exist. I mean, look at the Jack Link's commercial. Actually, Bigfoot is taken and considered as a joke.
Yeah.
And I believe at times, I know that Jack Link's, and this is nothing against them for coming up with that commercialization using a Sasquatch Bigfoot type creature. But that actually helps the cause that Bigfoot's nothing but a joke. And every time somebody comes forward saying, man, I think I seen a Bigfoot, you know, something walked across the road in front of me, extraordinarily tall, big stature, hairy, left a lingering odor behind, the whole 9 yards. Everybody just instinctually or naturally laughs at them or says, well, you just saw a bear.
Right.
You know, and so it actually helps the government's cause for whatever reason why they will not allow it to officially exist. But even if they officially allowed it to exist, it won't make it any easier for people to see them. Right. I mean, I wonder at times if people, and I understand what they're trying to do. They think they're trying to help a creature that don't need our help.
Yeah.
It ain't never asked for our help. It's surviving very much on its own. Hell, you got people out there that feed these things. Right. And what gets me is they feed them chocolates and things laced with sugar. And then they say how much they love this creature when all they're actually doing, they're a pusher creating a junkie. Yep. And, you know, you always hear these people, and most of them love other animals too. And they'll tell you, they'll be one of the first ones, don't never feed your dog chicken bones because they splinter and will, rip the insides up. Then you got those who say, well, don't feed your animals, especially dogs, chocolate. Mm-hmm. But hell, I know for a fact that a lot of these people who love these creatures so much are actually feeding them chocolate because especially the younger ones, once they get a taste of chocolate, they're just like the average human child. Mm-hmm. That's all they want is chocolate. I mean, you start feeding them McDonald's or something they don't need to start in their early developments. Yep. And they're not going to eat the types of food that they need to be healthy in their growth rate during their years going into puberty and teenage years and then grow into adults. I mean, we got an obese world running around with a bunch of diabetics today. Yep. And here we are loving Bigfoot so much that they're feeding them chocolate. And I'm sitting here saying, well, man, what's the irony in this? You know, it just don't make good sense to me.
I agree completely, and I've never heard of those experiments going well. At some point or another, they always seem to break down.
Well, the deal with it is, you better do this and be committed towards it long term.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you have is, a lot of people, they don't look at life as through a fatalistic sense. They're going to live forever. Well, even if you're not feeding the ones you've originally started feeding, word of mouth gets around amongst even the tribes, the troops, or even if any new creatures come into the general vicinity, and they say, hey, there's a free meal over here at so-and-so's house. Well, if they're getting this on a daily basis, what happens if you are forced to enter a hospital for a 2 or 3 weeks convalescent stay, or even, if you was to pass away or expire?
Mm-hmm.
You've already created a junkie that will go to the next door neighbor's house, or if they sell that house where you are feeding them at, to clear the estate and everything, and new people move in and they look out in the backyard and something 8 to 10 foot tall and hairy is beating the hell out of your back door wanting their chocolate fix. And, well, the first thing most of them are going to do, they're going to grab a gun and commence to throwing lead at something they don't understand. And who created or enabled the creature to start instinctively doing something that it chose not to do with humans for centuries?
Right.
And, is it the creature's fault, or did the person who loved it so much create a monster? It's kind of like the Frankenstein monster.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Once you've created it, I mean, you can't point the finger at nobody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely, and that's a great point. I know there are a lot of advocates out there trying to play nice and make friends, but this is as you've said, it's a wild being, it's a wild creature. And I think I heard it actually from Wes Germer on Sasquatch Chronicles. He's like, would you go out and try to hand feed a bear? Would you start trying to?
Hey, there's some idiots that do. Remember that old Weasley Man series, the documentary deal, and then he introduced his girlfriend into the equation, and everything was hunky-dory until maybe, I say this on baseless, not having the facts in front of me, but when I heard about that situation going south in a hurry, the bears that devoured and attacked him and his fiancée were killed. Because they were just instinctually being a bear.
Right.
And I'd even heard through the rumor grapevine that his fiancée actually may have been going through her menstrual cycle, which is the scent of blood. And when you introduce blood around a carnivore, especially a grizzly bear, especially one who don't know who they're dealing with, compared to dealing with this guy compared to his female companion, it turned into an explosive situation where everybody lost, including the innocent bear for just being a bear.
Right, exactly. And that's, there's so many horror stories similar to that in the Bigfoot world, of people doing that. And some people have claimed, look, I didn't even know I was feeding the thing until I noticed the dog food started disappearing. And then they moved the dog food, and next thing they know, their fences are broken and there's dogs missing.
Well, when you've got something, when you've got a mentality of probably a 5-year-old Down syndrome type child, and I'm not calling them being that way. I know their intellect is very simple, but it's also very complex, because when a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old throws a temper tantrum, it's nothing compared to something that weighs anywhere from 600, maybe plus pounds throwing a temper tantrum, and you don't want that.
Oh, my God.
And you are absolutely correct in regard to people will be feeding their dogs outside, and then they start noticing that they're paying a lot of money and feeding an extraordinary amount of dog food to two dogs.
Yeah.
And where's this dog food going? Because Red over there sure looking puny. I mean, he ain't even looking like, he must be wormy, so we better go deworm him or something. But and then, I mean, it's even as complex as sweet feed for cattle and for horses. These things do, you know, sweet feed has sorghum, molasses, and other sweet things inside it for nutrients and all for cattle and horses. But these creatures like sweet feed quite a bit. And people who have these big ranches and these farm outfits start noticing that they're using a lot of feed, or they run an inventory on what their stock is, and they're missing 2 or 3 50-pound sacks of feed.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of their help is riding around the range or on the perimeter of their property, and they find these empty sweet feed bags ripped open in these locations where it shouldn't be. You know, now a vagrant really just decided he wanted to become a total vegan, so he starts eating sweet feed. No, that ain't the case. And
All right, Bear.
it's an accidental habituation with that situation. Is you just have to figure it out.
All right, we're going to head to our first break of the night, so don't go away, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back in just a couple minutes for more of This Evening with the Bear here on the Paranormal Portal. So don't go away, everybody. We'll be right back. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for being here. Hope you guys are having a great night. I hope you're enjoying the show. I'm loving the hell out of it personally. It's just been amazing. And of course, welcome to the show, Don.
Hello.
And I just wanted to say, tonight's guest, the Bear, Mr. Jim King, is here, and it's just so incredible to me to have this opportunity to interview and talk with him on the air and to be on our show, and I can't thank him enough for that. But the first thank you has to go out to a good friend of mine and a dear friend of Bear's as well, Mrs. Cindy Goodbrake, who made this introduction possible. She introduced me to Bear and got me in touch with him, and I'm just been on cloud nine
He's
since.
He's been over the moon. Over the moon.
So Cindy, if you're out there listening, thank you so much for this, and I can't thank you enough, and you made this happen, so you're my hero as well.
I think he's about to cry.
Nah,
Tears of joy.
I'm not quite that misty, but it does mean a lot. I mean, she did make this happen.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, that's awesome.
And again, of course, welcome back to the show, Bear. Hope you're
Yes.
enjoying yourself too, sir.
Oh, I always have a good time, man. I love to run my mouth. That's what everybody say. I have no filter.
Well,
None.
So before the break, we were talking about the habituation and stuff, and I did want to ask you, because you had brought up the time when you guys were out, and it was that gentleman from Wisconsin's first encounter. You said it was recorded on infrared. Now, some people claim that perhaps boogers or Bigfoot can see the infrared spectrum. Do you have any kind of feedback on that, or what is your opinion on that?
They do see the infrared spectrum. We found this out. We discovered it actually by accident one time. Dan Ricky, I mentioned him earlier. He's what we call our group of guys that do this, men and women. Mm-hmm. We call them outlaws. Mm-hmm. And the reason we're outlaws because when we got into doing this way back in 2000, we was running into people. Now, you remind me of this question in a minute because I got to explain this. We was running into people in the community that were play acting like scientists. They wanted to be labeled researchers, and you got to do it the scientific method to be acknowledged, be acclaimed. And I'm sitting here thinking the whole time, I said, man, we do all the legwork, we do all this, and there's not a scientist accredited out there that will take any of this unless they do it in their own proven environment, which their findings would be theirs personally then. I mean, you don't go to college for 8 to 12 years to get that type of accreditation, so some poor old country boy from Mississippi can get all the credit for it. I mean, it's not going to work that way. Mm-hmm. You write papers, scientists write research papers, and I'm not down in that. The scientific method works great if it's applied for those who are accredited towards that. Mm-hmm. We're really doing this for the adventure. Actually, we're hoping, and actually over the years, there have been 2 young people who were the children of fellow outlaws who have gone out with us, who have since gone to college. One of them's in anthropology, and another one's gotten into biological science, all because of the things they've encountered or experienced out with us guys. They know this thing is real, and they are taking the right approach by putting in the time to get the accreditation through major universities, colleges, doctorates, so forth and so on, to actually give the very real legitimacy to what is actually out there. Mm-hmm. A lot of times it would actually be better, I totally believe, that if we just leave it alone. A lot of people work under the misperception that once the government or whatever entity that is not allowing this very real animal to exist to suddenly be real, that's not going to make the rest of all these Bigfoot, booger, Sasquatch type creatures come out of the woods with a white handkerchief on a stick saying, okay, the gig is up. We've been here all along. You've given us accreditation. So now we don't have to hide from you guys anymore. I don't see how people can be that naive about it. Right. But getting back to the original question about the infrared, mm-hmm. we had one of our cameras go bonkers on us, and as I said, we do this on a shoestring budget. So we're sitting here, done destroyed the camera, done took the guts out of it, innards are laying everywhere on the table. We started putting the thing back together. What we didn't realize when we did this, that we had accidentally turned on the IR eliminator. And where we was doing this was a house, I call her my sister, I mentioned her earlier, Vicky, Dan's wife, and she has about 5 schnauzers in her home. The schnauzers went absolutely berserk in the living room, and we thought the son of guns went totally crazy. I was ready to go get a baseball bat and knock them in the head because they just went nuts. And, of course, I would have had to knock Vicky in the head, too, and Dan, by virtue of being along for the ride, you know, because he's got to do the manly thing and stand up. But we figured out what it was. We'd done accidentally turned on our eliminator. And so we got to saying, you know, canines are nocturnal type creatures, too. I mean, they can see in the dark also. Mm-hmm. And we figured it out because Dan would grab the camera and turn it to the right or left, and then dogs would go to this corner over here, knock over this lamp over there. And what it was is our eliminator was on, we didn't realize. And that's when we became aware. Another time, even in the field, we were sitting there looking through Generation 3 night vision, And this was when Generation 3 night vision was not cheap at all.
Right.
When Dan first bought he bought 2 units. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they was around $1,000 a piece.
Wow.
I think you can get them a lot cheaper now. Actually, better versions like goggles and things like this for maybe $400, $500, $600. But what we did, we was in the field. It was actually on the same outing where Shane had the one try to grab him. Me and Dan was about 25 yards from Shane because he was doing the live broadcast, and we was looking at some up on the ridge above us through his Generation 3 night vision. And when we did, I think I accidentally hit it because I'm ignorant in the use of appliances like that, and I freely admit it. I think I hit the IR switch. When I did, it was like they froze for a millisecond, and then they disappeared behind the tree trunks.
Wow.
And I told Dan, because when I was looking through it physically, I seen where the IR light come on, and I looked at Dan, and he said, "What just happened?" Because, see, he was still looking at it through his Gen 3 on Gen 3 without the IR. He said, what just happened? They just, all of a sudden, it was like all 3 of them instantaneously just, okay, we're gone. It was an unspoken command, or are they telepathic like a lot of people want to claim, you know? And I said, "Brother, man, I hit this IR eliminator." He said, "Okay, so evidently they can see in the IR spectrum." So that's when we figured out, keep the IR out of it. You'll have better success.
And would you say that that's the reason that all these trail cam attempts
cams,
aren't gleaning much results either, is because they're seeing that illumination long before they're in the range?
Well, see, a lot of the trail cams, you can set them without the IR, and that's what we do. I'm thinking, because I've talked to William Draginis from West Virginia, I don't know if you know the gentleman, very astute expert on sound devices, and he did an experiment. We actually believe, before I get into the details of this, that we know these things can hear in a sound frequency that we as humans cannot. And I can go into more detail about that if you remind me of it, because I get caught up in the subject at times and I'll forget coming back to what the original train of thought was. But what we figured out was, even your basic game camera, if you'll notice, they sell them and they say, the deer don't even know they're there. Well, look at every game cam out there. The damn deer is looking at the camera. So, I mean, come on now. They're hearing something that triggers a response from them. I think they're actually hearing the battery cycle. And that may sound just totally bonkers, but you've got to quit thinking like a human in regard to Mother Nature and the animal kingdom out there. The provider, the creator, has given certain animals the ability to hear in sound frequencies that we as humans cannot. And this has been proven through whale research, with dolphins, even with lions and tigers. Even the American turkey, Ben Franklin's pick for the symbol of the United States, even though they went to the eagle, has a form of infrasonic type hearing. And, you know, they drum, and other birds from long distances can hear this. But humans cannot physically hear certain things. And we really think, because we was getting photos of deer and other things, that they was looking at the camera. And so we got to thinking, because we'd go check, we'd put these cameras up in locations that we knew these creatures were at. And we'd come back and we'd take the SIM card out of the unit and go stick it in the computer, and we'd have about 90 to 80 photo shots of nothing. And so we got a little smart, or we like to think we did. We went to your local dollar store or whatever, in whatever part of the country you're listening to. Around here it's called General Dollar Store, but used to be TGY and all. And we'd buy these 8-foot-tall vanity mirrors that your wife always wants to hang on the back of her bedroom door so she can see her suave, beautiful body in that dress or in that pantsuit, And we'd go buy these things back when we started buying them, you could get a mirror, an 8-foot mirror for about $5 or $6. I think now they're about 8 or 10, but it's not a lot of money. And we would put the cameras filming the mirror. And so, and it's a very simple step. And what we did and we discovered was these damn boogers were getting behind the tree that we had the cameras mounted on, and they would either use their finger or a stick or a piece of sage and flash in front of that camera just to trigger it off. And, that showed us something there, because what they were doing, we figured this out, because we would set up like things, and we don't recommend this, we really don't. We would make bags of salty, very salty popcorn. Bigfoot is a carnivore. I don't care how many vegans out there want to say different. They eat meat. And they got to have meat, especially during the winter months, but
Right.
Times are hard, and, you can't go out there and eat green shoots off of trees and everything year round unless the climate, gives you that opportunity, like Florida and maybe certain areas in southern Texas, and some of the desert regions out in New Mexico and Arizona and all. But these things would eat meat at times, especially during the fall and late fall and winter. And hell, I done lost my train of thought. I'm working on it, but keep with me, bear with me. And these things a meat eater has to have salt.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care. Yeah, that's the point I was going to get to. If you eat meat, you've got to supplement your diet with salt. Find locations that have natural salt licks or where 2 or 3 creeks come together. I mean, think about it. Most of the continental North American peninsula was under ocean water for many years. And when the ocean water started receding and, mountains started building up and pushing up through the stratus, this salt water had to recede back into the ocean. And where these large pockets would concentrate would be around these creeks and streams and rivers where they all come together. Most of these locations are also locations, and this is another factor, where the First Nation people would always build their villages. You could find arrowheads and things like this in these locations, and they would always have huge deposits of salt where all these little creeks and streams and everything would flow back into the ocean. If you look on a map and you find these confluences of this type water flow systems, you'll also see a large number of Bigfoot sightings in those locations. Cedar trees, evergreen type trees do not need the rich soil to grow a hardwood in, because if you planted a hardwood type tree in that type soil, it won't grow. And that's another little major factor, is look for evergreen type trees, because their root system does not need to go deep into the ground, especially a cedar tree. if you correlate that with locations across the North American continent where you have an abundance of evergreen type trees, mainly cedars and conifers and things like that, ferns, anything that's not a hardwood or broadleaf tree, you would have a large concentration of Bigfoot. But getting back to the story, we would put popcorn and heavily salted, and we would put these cameras on these bags of popcorn. Now, remember what I told you about these rascals sitting behind that tree tripping off that camera?
Sure.
They figured out the rhythm that there is always, back in the day, these cameras wouldn't trigger off bam, 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 bam. They'd have to reload, reset. Mm-hmm. And that little 2.7 seconds is enough for a Bigfoot to figure out, I can snatch that bag of popcorn, because we would have a shot of the bag of popcorn, and the very next shot, about 3 or 4 seconds later, the bag of popcorn's gone.
Wow.
Now, this is how smart this animal is.
Yeah,
and,
crazy.
I've also mentioned earlier about them having a mentality like and please, anybody listening to the show, I'm not picking on Down syndrome type people. I'm just saying that their mentality rate is that way if you wanted to put them in a pair of bib overalls and lead them into Walmart. It's just not going to compute too well.
Right.
And it won't. But these things are wood smart, survivalist smart. They're the ultimate Rambos out there, and they can figure this out. They can figure out that thing's pointing for a reason. They don't know what it's about. And I'm thinking, and I mentioned William Gavinus again. I may be butchering his name. He's out of West Virginia. But he's discovered this too. I mean, there's people all over the North American continent and other countries that are putting a lot of time and effort into this. And they correlated that something is happening within the electrical charge of those batteries that these things can hear. That's the only explanation there is. They've got to actually hear something take place and realize that there's a interruption.
Yeah.
But that interruption is brief. And for them to logically figure that out is genius in its own estimate.
That's incredible. That really shows some pretty in-depth problem solving, though. I mean, really, to figure out a timing, to figure out which parts are the part they want to avoid, how to work around that, what kind of timing issue it is between frames, and to steal the bait without being captured on film. Do you think they realize what a camera is, or do you just think they realize it's something we put there and it goes off and they don't like that?
They see us put it there the minute we pull up to a location. I'm going to just give you a general scenario here.
Sure.
You pull up to a location. You automatically assume, and even hunters in the United States, which I'm mainly hunting in the United States, but other locations too, they'll naively pull into a location, not even thinking that especially in the country or wide open spaces, that the sound of that vehicle pulling into that general location, which is a rare thing, but it does happen, they have associated with, okay, there's an intruder here. Not only that, they listen for the blue jays, the magpies, the crows, the squirrels, everything else. When you step out of your vehicle, slam your door, walk into the woods, you automatically think you're John Rambo. You see what I'm saying? I am a stalker. I'm the ultimate Tarzan of this vast jungle.
Yeah.
And they don't think that there's also a harbinger or something screaming that there's something different. I equate it to, and I learned this from a a guy that we used to research with, and he's gone on with his life. His name's Chad Scott. He's out of Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
He would always say it's like throwing a pebble into a pond. The smaller rock you throw, the less ripples come off that pebble.
Mm-hmm.
But if you throw a huge rock or a big stone about the size of your hand into that pond, the center of that pond, the ripples are going to come all the way to the shoreline and ripple back upon itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens in the animal kingdom when you drive into a location and you step into the woods.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You've got to let things settle down. You have to, you have to let the environment calm down. Most animals are very forgetful and just go back into their normal routine.
Right.
A Bigfoot who's already got a attitude or a reason for not trusting mankind or humans, they're not like any other animal, because their whole existence, for whatever reason they decided to do it, is to avoid and stay away from humans. That's why they've been so successful up until this point in time, except to, certain select few who've experienced it over the years. And I'm sure a lot of listeners that's probably listening to this program live or even in archives once you post it that way, and they hear this, they're going to sit there and say, well, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Right.
That, there's so many people out there who've either been cursed or they've been blessed to actually experience and see this amazing creature. But there's a reason this thing has survived unknown as long as it has up until this point in time. It don't trust man at all. And so that's why I honestly believe the average lifespan of one is probably 30, 35 to 40 years in the wild. Now, if you was able to capture one like you do lions or bears, and you feed it a certain diet every day and you keep it in a controlled environment, yes, they do live longer. But as far as I know, unless the government has done this successfully, I've never known anybody to capture one. Think of their stress levels just in and of itself in avoiding man.
Yeah.
Their heart rate has to be extraordinarily up there. Their blood pressure has to be high, off the scale. I just don't see them surviving more than maybe 30 to 40 year lifespan.
Sure.
I really don't.
Now, Bear, we're about to head to our hour break, and so this will be a good place for us to take a break. But I want to get into more of that car thing when we come back. There's a question that I have, and I've heard it related in several stories, and so I want your opinion of it and to hear your insight onto that as well. But, ladies and gentlemen, don't go away. We're going to be right back after this break to continue our discussion with the Bear here on the Paranormal Portal. So get a drink, take a rest, and come back ready, because we're going to hit the ground running here on the Portal.
Hi everyone, it's Chris Gio here, founder of True Frequency Radio. It is with the deepest sorrow that I have to inform everyone.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. steady. Just make sure that you're well fed.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
This looks extraordinarily bad.
They linger in a perpetual dream state, a nightmare from which they cannot wake. I can't see you, Mommy. Where are you? I've never sensed anything like it. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 here on the Paranormal Portal. I hope you're doing good. Hope you're having a good night, and hope you're enjoying the show. I'm in a happy place myself. This has been an absolute amazing conversation with a person that I've admired and listened to for years during his tenure in so many different facets of the Bigfoot community, and listening to his interviews all across the plane, as far as from coast to coast, to Sasquatch Chronicles, to his own show, and now right here on the Portal. I'm absolutely humbled, but again, Bear, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for taking your time to be here with us. This is just amazing.
It's my pleasure, man. Like I said, I'm sitting on this mountain waiting on the booger to come up here and rattle my truck.
Well, and before break, we were talking about, you had mentioned, we were discussing their ability to problem solve and their ability to recognize sounds and stuff. Now, I've heard several accounts in the past about people claiming that they can recognize individuals and even know what kind of car they drive, what it sounds like. They can track that sound, and they can follow it for really incredible distances. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yes, sir, it is. What happens is you get people in their enthusiasm that wants to, I guess you'd say, I call it cheating. And the reason I call it cheating, the Creator placed these things here to adapt and adjust and provide for themselves. The best way and the fastest results, instead of doing this in a trustworthy manner that does not portray the magnificence of its own ability to provide for itself, they will cheat and place articles of food and things that they cannot get on their own, like peanut butter and other things like that. And I actually hate saying those articles, like I mentioned earlier in the first hour, the salty popcorn or the peanut butter. I've seen photos of people putting peanut butter out in complete peanut butter jars, and other small mammals like skunks and a raccoon or an opossum or whatever will get their head stuck inside the jar even though it was provided for the Bigfoot, and suffocate and die. And, you know, you'd walk up on these carcasses after they have suffered and starved to death with these things stuck over their heads. And, I mean, you can't sit there and declare how good you're doing and the good you're doing,
Right.
because 9 times out of 10, if the peanut butter jar is gone or missing, that means the Bigfoot took it off to, you know, its lair or its home turf, you know, and shared the good all around. But no, 9 times out of 10, it's, you know, an innocent animal paid the price for your ignorance. But getting back to what I was saying earlier, what people would do in their exuberance to film one, study one, see one, they have to cheat to entice them to come out. Right. Well, these things will recognize that you need a muffler or you need a tune-up on that certain vehicle. And as I mentioned earlier, sound does travel over long distances, especially when you get away from urbanization of cities where, you know, there's so many vehicles you can't differentiate between one or the other. The best way I can explain it is, my wife, we live in the country in kind of northwest Alabama, and in the country. And for me or my wife to actually come home, we've got 2 little ankle biters, what I call them, but they're feist dogs. You know, my wife loves them, so I gotta love them too. We keep them outside, and I've sat here through the years, and they can hear my wife's vehicle coming down that highway stretch for anywhere up to 6 minutes before she actually pulls into the driveway. Yep. Wow. I've tested this theory by going outside to see if I can physically hear her car. I cannot. But out of all the hundreds of vehicles that travel that road every day, they can differentiate. These are just 2 ordinary dogs, house pets, kept outside. They can hear the rhythm or the pattern of my wife's vehicle. Recently, she accidentally hit a deer crossing the road in front of her, and she had to get a new vehicle. My experiment was to see how long it took our 2 dogs to adapt to the rhythm of the new engine in her new vehicle, which was totally different from her old one. Right. She was driving an SUV earlier. Now she's in a just your basic car, what I call it. But, you know, it gets better gas mileage than the damn SUV, so I guess we're ahead on the deal. But anyway, it did not take hour 2 months. Well, I better not say that. My wife might be listening to this show eventually. Her 2 babies, 2 weeks to adapt in recognizing the pattern of the engine of her car coming down the highway, or it's either the sound of the tread of her tires on the pavement. And they can hear her and will announce her coming home because they're so happy to see Mama up to 5 to 6 minutes before I'll even know she's turning into the driveway. Now let's equate that back to a Bigfoot. Here you are on a daily basis or a weekly basis, placing food in an isolated location where sound travels. These things can cross country extraordinarily fast. We've had a guy that I know who had one chase him, not physically chasing him, but what he was doing, he was pacing his truck as he was driving out of a field. He saw this thing in his side view mirror. So he looks down and see how fast he's going. He said, well, let me pick up the pace a little bit. Looks like he just wants to hang with me here a little bit. He got up to 45 miles an hour before the Bigfoot started lagging back and then peeled off to the left into the bushes on the side of that farm lane road. And That's fast. That's faster than a horse.
Wow.
And a lot of times when you see these things, you know, is a very short window of opportunity. That's when they cross highways and roads and things like that. But going 45 miles an hour from 0 to 45 quick, that's instantaneous, and it's very fast.
Wow.
And, I mean, it's like blinking your eye fast, you know, especially with sight of line being limited. But these things, what they will do, we figured it out because what would end up happening, most of these people within a 3-week time would start experiencing weird things happening around their own homes. Right. And I'm not talking about the people that live in cities, you know, next door neighbors on top of each other. I'm talking about people who, I'm not going to do this in my backyard because I don't want them knocking on my door or waking up at 3 in the morning with him standing at the foot of the bed and his hand hanging out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And actually, I've got a story about that really happened. One actually did come into a guy's house, and him and his wife woke up to an extraordinarily strong, putrid smell, and there he was standing at the foot of the bed.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Well, I told them to quit feeding the damn thing, but after then, they wanted me to get rid of it. And I said, hell, this is your headache. I told you way before now not to do it, you know. And but anyhow, getting back to the story, what these things would do, they would recognize the vehicle, the pitch of the motor or whatever. They know that the dinner bell's being rung. They know that, they come in there. Then they'll watch this person leave and head in the same direction going home every day. So what they'd do is they'd sit on top of the hill or whatever, get them a big, tall vocal center point, and they recognize the direction the vehicle comes from. So they're already ahead of the ball game here. They would hear this vehicle, and a lot of people say BS, you know. On this deal, but think about it. I use a lot of common sense and logic and everything that I've learned over the years, and so far I've been lucky that it's played out that way. But they would, when this person would start heading in that same general direction, every time they would place their offering or their bounty for whatever purpose or reason, these things would kind of run across country parallel listening to the rhythm of their motor. I've known people to go as far as 5 to maybe even 15 miles away if they didn't have to cross a major river or a suburban location to run across country and start pattern like a pattern. A pattern, P-A-T-T-E-R-N. I know I'm butchering the word, but they would start patterning these people, and they'd get a little closer every time.
Wow.
Excuse me, there's all this wood smoke I've been choking down. What they'd do, they'd go as far as they could until it completely out of their hearing frequency range. And the next time they, I mean, it's not like they know Monday through Sunday, you know, but they count the days to a certain degree. And if this was on a regular basis, and a lot of people in their exuberance would make this a 2 or 3 day deal because they want to gain the trust of the Bigfoot people, the forest people, you know. And so you know, this sucker's done traced them all the way back home, and they're calling me on the telephone, Bear, I got a problem. I said, what's your problem? I promised you I wasn't going to do it in my backyard, so I was doing it 10 miles away, and the son of a guns have done followed me home. Right. And I'm sitting here saying, okay.
Oh, no.
I told you, don't start it if you can't finish it, man. Don't start it if you can't finish it.
Right. Yeah. So they definitely are able to reason on a really, really high level then. I mean, as far as and that's surprising, but not, I guess, not really surprising, because I've heard people talk about the cranial cavity. It is believed that Neanderthals, or it's known that their brain pan was actually larger than ours, and so and the same is hypothesized for the Bigfoot. So the idea is that they are as intelligent as we are, but they just don't have the knowledge we have. But I don't know what to think of that.
A lot of people mess up on that.
Okay.
When you say they are as intelligent as us as humans, a lot of people hear that statement and say, okay, and that brings me back to, let's put him in a pair of pants and a shirt and shave his hair off and take him to church with us. No.
Right.
They're smart. They can count up to 5. It may not be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It may be in their own logic.
Right.
But after 5, we've come to figure out that you have more than 5. So if you have, say, like a number of puppies in a litter, 8 puppies, 8 puppies. Then you come back to the litter, and there's 3 gone. And you logically, with common sense wise, say, 3 of them passed away, so the loving mother went and found them a burial spot and buried them. She just ain't got time to, set up a monument or a stone.
Yeah.
And, but mostly what happens is when they see you have more than 5, they basically assume that we won't miss them. And normally we do not, because logic wants us to say, mother lovingly put them in the dog cemetery. You see where I'm coming from?
Right.
Now, natural causes do happen. But here's the kicker on this. And people have been knowing this all their lives, but they did not realize it, especially people that live out in rural communities or in the country. They assume that, after the 3 have passed away, the mama has moved the litter to another location and we've got to go find it. Now, where did the mother move the litter?
I don't know.
You get where I'm saying here? She moved the litter because some big hairy thing may have come up there and took 3 of the puppies.
Right. I got you now. Sorry about that.
It's a lapse. I have them brain farts myself all the time. Sometimes I can out-talk myself. Told you, I ain't got no filter.
No, I agree, and that's amazing to me. The part that really I'm really always in awe at in listening to you for all of these years is the logic that you've applied to these beings, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, I think that as far as behaviorally go, if I was to wager a guess, I'd say you're dead on. I mean, it's just you've got this so dialed in, and I've taken most of what you said, if not everything you said, and thought, that's just got to be it. Because you have been around these things your whole life, and even down to the vocalizations. Now you've got their vocalizations pretty well mapped out as well.
Well, when you hear them, you got to envision this. I grew up in an era in the 1960s where I wasn't on PlayStation all the time. I didn't play Xbox. We didn't know what it was. It was get your ass out in the yard and play, get out from under my hair. And,
right.
That's when we would ride around on bicycles without needing knee pads, elbow pads, a crash helmet, the whole 9 yards. Hell, we were riding down gravel roads barefooted wearing a pair of shorts. And that was it, and I understand liability, so forth and so on. The world changes. I don't like it, but, we've got to the point now where we make excuses for our behavior. But back in the day when I come up, we didn't hang around in the house. We was outside playing. I had horses, the whole 9 yards. When we outside playing and we hear something up on the hill behind our place, and we hear a certain call that is not a blue jay or a fox or a coyote or whatever, and then you hear a response to it. As, you know, just your average country boy who, you know, paying attention to it, I mean, we learned how to mimic owls, O-W-L-S, owls.
Right.
And we knew their cadence, we knew their rhythm, and we knew that if we mimicked it, the cadence and the rhythm, you're going to get a response. And then you're going to have, next thing you know, you're going to look up and that old owl sitting in that tree, cocking his eye and winking at you, you know?
Yeah.
And we would hear these things on our property. And we know certain calls. We know the ones that solicit a response. And we'd be in the backyard and we'd hear those calls. So we'd give the answer back to them, you know, because we heard the answer and reply from another location. Then we even started saying, hey, if we can get the reply in, let's do the phone call. Let's do the knocking. You know, we're knocking on the door. So we start doing and issuing the call that would elicit a response. And it has worked everywhere. Last year, we had the honor, I did, of speaking at Brenda Harvey Harris, a very major, I call her the queen of the Bigfoot world. I think she is one of the most extraordinary female Bigfoot enthusiasts out there. She helps people on the Navajo reservation, which she's a member of the tribe. The people, the Dene, they call themselves the people, and I'm all for it. Every First Nation tribe considers themselves the people. That's just their logic. Sure. But she helps these people. And when I was out there for her conference, we was honored to go on a mountaintop with her and another good friend of mine named Randy Yazzie. And he's also Navajo. And I couldn't wait to use my call that I heard on the hilltop behind my house in Mississippi back in the 70s. I wanted to see if a Bigfoot in Arizona would answer a call that I heard originate in the backyard in Mississippi, and I'd be damned if it didn't happen. I looked around.
Wow.
I had Dan Rickey with me again. I've mentioned Dan several times. Dan's one of my best friends, mentor, love the man to death. He's actually one of the 12 that's out trying to antagonize a booger tonight, and when they come back, so they're still out, so that's a good sign. That means something productive is happening. And anyway, while we was out there, I did the calls, and I knew that Randy and Brenda were very good at also using their own calls. But I assumed, and you know what assuming does, I assumed that she was probably using our calls. And, you know, which I don't claim it our call. I take possession of it because we figured it out on our own. So, you know, that I want to give us, at least for all of a millisecond, our calls priority that is ours. But because the average person don't do it. You hear calls on Finding Bigfoot and other TV shows, but that's not the call that solicits a response. And it does. It will from a very immature, young Bigfoot type creature, but it won't solicit a response like it would with the call if you actually used it that would get that kind of a response. And we used the call out there, and immediately I did the call, answered immediately with the exact same call response I was expecting. So that shows me right there immediately that we're talking about the same creature that's in Mississippi, and I don't mean figuratively. I mean this thing is across the United States answering the call all over the United States. It's something that they all use.
Yeah, so it's a common language to them?
That's where I'm leading, leading me towards, Don. I cannot wait till I can get one day financially able to get to the Pacific Northwest and see if those rascals out there answer the same calls that I've learned that he answered to in dang near every southern state I've been to, including Oklahoma and Texas, even though I do claim them as southern states, but it worked in Arizona.
Right.
And then Dan, 45 minutes later, said, hey, you want me to try call again? I said, yeah, go ahead. He did his call immediately. They answered.
Wow.
Brenda was sitting over there and Randy was sitting over there, and I looked at them then. I said, guys, ain't that the call you guys use? And they both said, no, it's not. That's the first time we've ever heard that call used. And what blows us away is it was answered immediately. I said, well, with great power comes great responsibility. I learned that from Spider-Man. And I said, look, you know I can trust you guys. You're very trustworthy. This call can get a novice-type person hurt, injured, or whatever. Because they can bring one in, and once they see what they've caused is cause and effect, they may panic, and when they panic, it could turn into a very dangerous or even fatal situation.
Absolutely. Bear, we're going to take our last break of the night, and we'll be back then in just a couple minutes again for the final half hour of the show, but just phenomenal night.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been awesome.
We're also going to open up the call board, so if you want to call in for the last half hour, we can maybe take a couple calls, but again, the number to call in is 213-233-3998, and it's on the YouTube stream as well. So we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last half hour of the show tonight. I hope you guys have been enjoying this. It's just been an amazing conversation, an amazing opportunity for us here on the show and for the Paranormal Portal to have such an amazing guest, Mr. Bear Jim King here. Thanks again, brother, for coming on and taking away from your outing to spend the time with us. But I can't tell you how much it means to me. It's just been awesome.
Man, I'm telling you, it's gone so fast, I don't even feel like I've been on here 30 minutes.
Yeah, we have the same problem every week. It just flies. It's
Flies
like,
by.
boom, done.
Yep.
So,
Hey, time flies when you're having fun, so I reckon we're doing something right.
That's right. That's right. Hey, Bear. You know, there was somebody was asking about wood knocks as part of their communication, and somebody also mentioned something about not possibly that some of it's not necessarily wood knocks, but possibly them beating their chest like an ape. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. It's both at times. I do know that it is solid wood knocks. I do know that they will slap their chest. One time, I reckon you guys, and maybe a lot of the Bigfoot community is familiar with a gentleman named N.K. Davis.
Yep.
You know, he did a breakdown of the Patterson footage. Well, before MK got into all that, actually MK has visited my property. And I was fortunate enough at the time to carry on a 45-minute conversation using tree knocks with a troop of Bigfoot that was across the creek from me.
Wow.
And I learned, there we go again, about patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in life can be patterned. You just have to figure the pattern out. And there we go back again to those bored kids in the backyard staying out from under my grandmother's feet. We'd hear these wood knocks. And we would hear normally, and, you know, I'm not saying this is universal because it varies. It really does. But, 3 knocks usually mean hello, are you there? What happens is, during the day, especially in the eastern part of the United States, these things are more nocturnal than they are seen in daytime compared to more heavily forested locations like the Pacific Northwest, you know. And for a troop to survive, each member of the troop has a function that protects the integrity of the troop as a whole, and they have what we call sentinels. In other words, along the perimeter of each family troop, there is males that are put in strategic positions to protect the integrity of the troop. If any human or anything they consider as a intruder or dangerous to the very young, possibly the females and the integrity of the troop, these sentinels will alarm and give this away. In the South, of course, these things are intelligent enough to realize if they use vocalizations during the day, which they occasionally do, but they're very stingy about that, they will use what we call tree knocks or chest slapping.
Okay.
You can hear the difference between the meteor thump that is produced from a chest slap compared to one when they're actually hitting on a tree. But let's go back to this strategic position. Mm-hmm. If you've got our drone sentinel duty for that day, normally, you know, these things won't stay in a given location no more than 3 days at a time, then they will move. If they varied this and stayed longer in any location, other than where they can be patterned, they will. I'm kind of hesitating here because one of the guys is hearing something. He's done walked up here to point it out to me. So, well, I'm going to just go on with this deal, and if it happens, I'll tell you about it on a future show. But he's up there really, yeah. But anyhow, he don't fit in on our time frame, so I've only got about 20 minutes now, so I better get back to the story. But what they will do when they're in that given strategic location, I'm not saying that they have a piece of wood set there, but I can guarantee you if they do, it's hardwood,
Right.
not evergreen type, and they actually use the base of a hardwood type tree to make this sound. They do this to disguise the fact that they don't want to physically vocalize or communicate. They have enough, I guess, recognition to know that vocalizations is not something normally heard, so they will disguise it using tree knocks. And there is a rhythm. 3 knocks usually means, hello, are you there? The conversation that I was able to carry on with the ones across the field on my property, when they would answer the 3 knocks with 1 knock, you reply back with 2 measured knocks. In other words, what I'm saying is don't go bam, bam, because that's too fast. You've got to mentally take into effect the length of their arms, holding a stick of wood to thump on the side of a tree. They're not Ringo Starr and the Beatles. I mean, they're not. Yeah, this is not a rhythm section here.
Mm-hmm.
They do have a rhythm pattern to it. It's like knock, knock. And usually if you hear 2 knocks, you reply back with 1. I don't know what it means, but they do love repetitions of 3. Even when they do vocalizations, they do it in 3s. 3 is a very important number. Remember, in nature, an owl, there's that old WL again, because I can butcher him too. He will always give out his call, who cooks for who, 3 times. It's always in 3s. If you listen to a blue jay or a crow, 80% of the time they do it in 3s.
That's true. They do.
Yep,
that's right.
I mean, yeah, it's Mother Nature's way. It's not that they can count to 3; it's done turned into a habit. But anyway, I carried on this conversation, and there was another person at the location at that time. They said, "Here, let me try that. It's working for you. Let me try it." He got the stick, and he went, bam, 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 bam. I just walked away in disgust. I said, we won't hear another damn word. MK sitting over there listening for a response, and we don't get one. He said, how did you know that? How did you know that he I said he disrupted the rhythm.
Right.
The gig is up now because you just revealed that you're a dumbass Bigfoot on the other end of that stick trying to be Ringo Starr. You know?
Exactly.
And for those who don't know who Ringo Starr is, he was the drummer for the Beatles. That shows you how old I am. I'm an old fart.
That's all right. You're bringing something new to the show, and doesn't matter how old you are. When you do that, you're my hero.
There you
go.
But that's basically what it is. There's always a pattern. You just have to figure out what the pattern is.
Right.
And a lot of people make it more complicated than it actually is when it's simple. I learned I was never a Marine, didn't have to be. Thank God for our veterans in this country who protect us every day. Hope they come home very well. And thank you for protecting us while we're sitting at home able to listen to a radio show. And me able to go out into the woods on an adventure with a 8 to 10 foot tall creature that could just stump break me at any second. And I'm going to let you answer what a stump broke means since I told you, Brent. Yeah. That way I won't take up the time on the show to try to explain it for the uninitiated.
But yeah,
plus it takes the onus off of me and puts it on to you.
Thanks a bunch. Yeah, I'll just forward those emails when they come in, Bear.
Yep. Yeah, I got you.
Now, there is quite a dark side to this being, though, too, right?
Yep. Everything has a yin and a yang, and you don't want to let's put it this way. It's a very opportunistic animal. And as I mentioned earlier, when it throws a temper tantrum, you don't want one 600 plus pounds throwing a temper tantrum. It don't even know its own strength at times. But it also knows, and it plays upon the predator-prey syndrome, which is fight or flight.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10 or 10 out of 10 times, the average person, when they see something like this, they use intimidating factors to get your attention, and it's usually nothing calm. It's a very sinister feeling in the woods. You'll hear footsteps, and then you'll be looking around, and damn, it seems like something's stalking me or walking behind me. So you start looking uneasily over your shoulder. Next thing you do, you start walking again. Well, you start walking again, and you start hearing it again. And you said, am I imagining this or not? And you're constantly looking back. The more you are getting agitated, your heart rate increases.
Right.
The more your heart rate increases, that's when your pheromones produce perspiration that pours through the pores of your skin. This thing can smell that.
Right.
He gets more excited, and I'm not talking sexually, so for all of you perverts out there who want to find a sexual deal about this, but what happens is he realizes, or it realizes, that you are getting stressed. The more stressed you get, the more he gets into the game. To him, it's a game.
Right.
And then you get to the point where you reach the panic stage. At the panic stage is where you start running into trees and stuff like that, you know. And a Bigfoot can make you run into a tree, whether you want to or not, because you've done gone into a blind panic. So many people have been run out of the woods because they panicked and did not calm down to evaluate the situation and calmly take advantage of it that's given, because that's what they were trying to do, is solicit a response for you, especially one in a panic stage. Then it becomes fight or flight. And I don't mean literally fight. What I'm saying is, once they have you to the point where you're a babbling idiot, scared off, and probably urinating on yourself, he's done won.
Yeah.
And in their own fashion, that is a major coup for them. That they can go back to their fellow buddies and say, hey, did you see that son of a bitch I made running in that tree? He stayed out on the ground for 2 hours. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. And so that would also tie into the behaviors like the rock throwing as an intimidation, or is that more mischievous? Does it have a mischievous side?
What they want to do is see how aware of what's going on around you. And automatically, I don't care who you are, even a veteran who knows what's doing it, if you're in an unfamiliar location and one throws a rock at you, I mean, the rock comes sizzling through there, there's no wind blowing, you know the squirrels ain't been taking steroids, so you, who threw the damn rock? And you start saying, who's there? I got a gun, I ain't worried about you, who's there? Then you don't see or hear nothing. Next thing you know, he brings another damn rock from another direction. And if they wanted to hit you, I promise you, you're beans. I mean, they're going to nail you. But they don't never just intentionally go to physically injure somebody. All they're trying to do is to watch that head snap on your shoulders completely around. That's when he gets stressed. Because then he has determined your degree of connaissance. In other words, you recognize something is out there throwing something. That just gleefully makes him excited. In other words, let's keep this going. Let me just really, really see how far I can push it. If you can calmly remain ignorant or either balls of steel and act like you can remain ignorant, you will make them slip up, because it just blows their mind, because everybody that goes into the woods will automatically assume the worst. If you kind of have a general idea of what's already out there, and you know enough that you can just calmly ignore it, he will get to the point where you've turned the game on him. And after a certain stage, he'll say, well, man, this fella's unflappable. So, and before you know it, he's done inched out from around the trunk of that tree into view, which it's not going to be wide out in the wide open, but enough of him be there, you can just catch him out of the corner of your eye, and you just slowly, casually turn your head in that direction and check him out for a change. You know, that's a lesson of the playing field.
There you go.
That's really cool. And I mean, there's so many stories of that, of those behaviors happening, about where they're shadowing people, they're mirroring them through the woods, they're kind of corralling them out of the woods.
Well, they're bored.
They've played all the games they can.
Yes, we are the Xbox game in real life. They have the controls.
Right.
It's how you play the game or you allow the game to play you. And mainly it's how the game is playing you.
Right.
Humans have a fallacy thinking that they are superior in intellect, logic, and anything out in the outdoors. But man, I'm telling you, you are a fool if you think you've got it made out there, because there's something out there fighting for daily survival and its own existence, whether it's his family, his family unit, or whatever. All they want to do is, they've decided long ago they want nothing to do with us. And they're going to do what they're going to do. And the best thing you can do is just be able to cope with it to the extent that you can turn it to your advantage.
Right.
Very good point.
Hey, Bear, I got a quick question. We only got a few minutes left, but, you know, I keep hearing about the samurai chatter. Get into that a little bit, if you would.
Well, I think it's their communication that's subconsciously at times done in a hearing frequency that we have recorded. Others have recorded it. The Sierra sounds, that's the best example of it that you can actually hear, but you have to purchase it. We have been fortunate enough that we have recorded it. It sounds like, if for the uninitiated or uninitiated in it, it sounds like the Tasmanian devil having a fit.
Okay.
And and it's kind of it's so rapid. And so many people ignorantly hear a phrase in there that sounds like dog or cow or one or whatever. These things are excellent mimics. If they hear something repeated and they see a response given to it, they will try it out and probably even practice it and worry the hell out of the truth by, practicing it until they actually can use it in a given experimental situation in real life. But this is the way they communicate amongst themselves. The biggest problem that people have, they're trying to humanize them. These things aren't human to that degree. And that's where they ignorantly, they're using their superior human logic to make something that's complicated hard, but then again, it's not hard, it's simple as long as you remember that this thing is not human enough to actually communicate with somebody.
Yeah, and so many people want to project a human being quality onto them as well, and that's not fair either. Even if they are intelligent.
No, you're right. It's all about respect. I mean, these things watch us on a daily basis. They know the people who walk and trek through the woods and eating that energy bar or whatever, and then just casually throw that wrapper onto the ground. That's disrespect. It's not only disrespect to Mother Earth, it's also disrespect to the Creator and to the creatures that the Creator had provided to maintain their existence on this plane. And they'll watch people, especially people they've never seen before, never smelled before, actions that are different, and they'll pick up on the patterns real quick. I've noticed, and through my work with the First Nation people across the North American continents, mainly in the South, that, it's all about respecting Mother Nature. And who is Mother Nature's keeper of the forest, the spirit of the forest, the wind of the forest? Mm-hmm. It's what we call Sasquatch, Bigfoot, what we call in the South, boogers. Because in the South, we call them boogers.
Mm. And catamounts. I've heard catamount, too. That's another Southern name. Is that right?
Well, I've heard catamounts are panthers or painters or pumas or cougars or big cats. I've heard some people call them catamounts. It's just whatever preferred and has been passed down from your older generations to others. As I said, every catamount I've ever heard was what we consider in the South a panther or a cougar or a Florida puma.
Right.
And, it's just a matter of perspective. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. Hell, I called them a lot of things. My granddaddy called them salva bitches.
We had two big old black Labrador retrievers, and when these things would be on the perimeter, these were the bravest dogs in the world. But when they come within the established perimeter of the Labradors, we had a house that was up on blocks, and it was about a little tall, about 15 inches. Dogs had to get down on their belly and crawl up under the house to get away from them. Every time they go under the house, even when we was asleep at night, they'd hit the floor joists under the bottom of the house. First thing my granddaughter would hear, them son of bitches in the yard again. Our dogs were very brave until they got within a certain distance of them. Then they become complete cowards and wake us all up. But that's how we knew that they was close proximity to us at home.
Well, thank you so much, Bear, for being here tonight. I just can't thank you enough, and I hope that you'll agree to come on again. I'd love to have you back as often as you'd like. It's just such a pleasure, and there's so many things I'd love to discuss, but 2 hours just doesn't even start to scratch it.
No, sir, it don't. It's been my honor. Good to meet you, Don, and I've really enjoyed this, and I have no problem coming on any future shows. I love helping people. It's not promoting me.
Right.
I can promise you that.
Sure.
I'm not making a dime off this. Don't want a dime off this. I just know that this is one of the Creator's greatest creations, and it helps for people to sort of understand it so they can begin to understand what this really is.
Absolutely.
And it's a flesh and blood creature. There's nothing extraterrestrial about it.
Absolutely. And I agree wholeheartedly. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. Thanks for staying with us. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the show as much as I have. Please stick around if you're listening on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, or TalkStream Live. Into the Microcosm with Jimmy Jean is coming up next. It's always a great show with layers of fun. But we'll be back on Wednesday night, ladies and gentlemen. So hope to see you then. Take care. Be kind to each other. Be nice. Be good to each other. And we'll talk to you next time. Oh, I guess I got 2 minutes left. I got a couple minutes left.
Wow.
I was really
jumping the gun.
I thought I kind of transposed the seconds and the minutes. But ladies and gentlemen, Bear, are you still there?
Yeah. You ain't turned me loose yet, so I'm going.
Is there currently any way for listeners of the show to get in touch with you or to follow what you're doing now?
Well, what we're doing currently now is we are going to create a website, and there is plans to bring a blog talk radio show back, and we've got some major plans for it in the future. It probably won't be out till possibly June or July this year, but we are stepping forward. We do know we need to give people an opportunity to be able to personally get in contact with us so we can actually help them follow or help them better understand what they really are dealing with here.
Well, when you get that up and running, make sure to let me know, and I'll certainly pass it on to our listeners as well. And I really hoping we can get you up into these Pacific Northwest up here to
Yes.
check out our boogers and see what you think.
Oh, I'd love to be up there. I'd love to do this all across the country, but I ain't getting no younger. That's why I'm still in the woods. Everybody wants me to write a book. I said, how in the hell can I write a damn book when I'm still out there living the adventure? And
There
it's
you go.
fun. I'm telling you, 58 years old, and I'm living every minute of it. Learning something new every day. The day you quit learning is the day you know everything, so you don't mind it anymore.
There you go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that brings us to the end. Thank you again. And again, we'll see you on next Wednesday for the YouTube live stream, and we'll be back on Friday, Saturday here on TFR Live, iHeart, TuneIn, TalkStream, and love you bunches. Take care, everybody.
Good night.